Om Shri Sai Ram. Welcome to everyone joining today. We begin by offering our most loving pranams at your divine lotus feet, Swami. It is with great joy that we begin this year by connecting live to Prashanti Nilayam and listening to dear brother Prem Anosh. Brother Prem is indeed blessed by Bhagwan to talk on many different aspects of his divine teachings. Today, he will speak on a question that is relevant to everyone. What is the goal or purpose of life? To answer this question is perhaps not as important as asking the question itself, and also the effort in discovering the answer for oneself. This talk will focus on this important theme. We thank you for joining us today, brother. Offer our best wishes to you. I'm now turning this over to you. Jai Sai Ram.
I offer my most loving pranams at Bhagwan's lotus feet. I pray to Swami that he gives all of us the understanding. It is Swami who speaks, and it is Swami who listens through each one of us. Sai Ram to everybody. A warm good morning from Prashanti Nilayam, and more importantly, a very happy new year to each one of you. Of course, we are on the second day of the new year. I believe it's still the first day of the new year there in the US. So happy new year to all of you. As it was said, we thought of deliberating on a very important topic, and oftentimes when you cross such man-made markers of time, right? Either it's a new year or it's one's birthday, one tends to stop and take stock of how far we've come, what are we doing with life, have we figured out things enough, and is life going in the direction we have figured out for ourselves. But if I have to disappoint you right in the beginning of the talk, as the introduction said, there is going to be no answer to what is the purpose of life in this talk. Because I sometimes wonder if I've got the answer to that myself. Suppose at the end of this talk, I get up from this room and I decide to go back home. Every step that I take after I step out of this room is going to be defined by that purpose. The route that I will take, the people that I might meet when I step out might stop me for a few minutes or a few seconds, but I will not lose sight of my purpose. All the while, that purpose will be defining the actions that I take. And suppose on the way, if I find that there's some road work happening, I might take a detour. But whatever I do, my entire few steps will be defined by this purpose of reaching home. So to this question of what is this purpose of life, and have I figured out what it is, I wonder if every step in my life is being defined that way. And if it is not, then there is no point in saying that this is the purpose of life and I've discovered it. So that is why the most important thing is to every now and then, whenever time permits, if time doesn't permit, create time and ask this question: what is the point of all of this? Where am I heading? And more importantly, for all of us in whose life Swami has stepped in, it's a huge blessing that Swami has given. And just like if somebody who's a stranger, or not even a stranger, someone who's an acquaintance comes and gives you a huge sum of money, or suddenly something has been given to you, you will ask why. What is the whole point of why are you coming in showering such magnanimity on me? I think the same question we need to ask with this great fortune that has come our way. Swami, why did you step into our lives? And are we serving that purpose with which you stepped into our life? So as I said, I'm not necessarily going to answer that question, but it's important that we at least ask ourselves, are we aligning our life and our choices to what Swami expected. Because eventually on this journey, I think we will find out what is this whole idea, and maybe once we find it for ourselves, the necessity of a support from around us will be lesser and lesser. But till then, it is important to ask a few questions. It is important to look deeply into Swami's words and keep redefining our life. Swami makes this beautiful point in a discourse, I think in the 1973 summer showers, which we were going through as part of some of our radio programs, where Swami says that if there is a traveler who's been traveling through the day, he or she is waiting. When will the destination be reached? Or if there's somebody who is on a tour going around the country, they are desperately waiting, when will I get back home? Forget about journeying. Swami says even the person who has to go to an office and work, say from 9 to 5, towards the end of the day is wondering, when will I go back home? Swami asks, why is it that that fatigue doesn't come to you in your life? Why are you not wondering, when will I reach my destination? When will I go back home? I would like to begin with a beautiful letter that Swami had written in the year 1973, 16th of December. A very profound letter. I would like to read a few lines from that letter and probably muse on that for the next few minutes. Swami says in that letter, "My dear, have you got any spiritual hunger?" The whole letter is on this theme, spiritual hunger. So that's how Swami starts this letter. My dear, have you got any spiritual hunger? Spiritual hunger is the ultimate meaning of every activity in life. The dissatisfaction and the restlessness that remains, even after obtaining all the necessities of life, show that everyone, consciously or unconsciously, does suffer from spiritual hunger. And it is not appeased until the spirit within is realized. Without this divine discontent, there is no real progress. There is another paragraph after that, but I'm going to focus on this one. A very profound letter and a very deeply moving inquiry that Swami is making us indulge in, isn't it? The first line is, have you got any spiritual hunger? It is almost like Swami looking at us and saying that you have so many aspirations, you have so many desires, you crave for so many things. Do you have any spiritual hunger? But the beautiful thing is what happens after that, what Swami says after that. He says, spiritual hunger is the ultimate meaning of every activity in life. What that means is, each one of us have spiritual hunger. Swami doesn't ask whether you have it or not. The question, have you got any spiritual hunger, means, have you recognized that the discontent that you feel is actually spiritual hunger? So that is one of the most important points that Swami is making there. He's saying, first of all, everyone is discontent, whether they label themselves as worldly or spiritual. Everyone is discontent. And it is not a defect. It's a design. We are meant to be discontented. And the second point is, Swami says, it has to be recognized that this is spiritual hunger. There is only spiritual hunger, but some of us think that it is a worldly craving and it is a necessity that needs to be met. But what Swami is saying is, understand it is spiritual hunger. The second point is, some try to satisfy it with worldly attainments. Some of us perhaps have come to a point where we recognize that this is not going to be satisfied with whatever I achieve in this world. And the other beautiful point that Swami makes in that statement, which continuation of what I said, is this discontent will not go even after obtaining all the necessities. We could wait till a point where we satisfy all our worldly cravings and then realize this. But our good fortune is we are getting to know this even before we take on that laborious quest of trying to satisfy everything. Because here is Swami telling that this discontent will not be satisfied even if you settle all the necessities of life. And then the universal declaration, which only the universal master can make, only when the spirit within is realized, this discontent will go. So, which means till that last stage, this discontent is going to be our lot. And that is a blessing. Because it is this discontent and this dissatisfaction which is going to turn us slowly towards this spiritual quest. Swami has made this reference a couple of times. It is originally from the Taittiriya Upanishad, Brahmananda Valli, where the different kinds of Ananda is described. It starts with Manushyananda. Manushyananda is the human happiness that you and I experience. Right? Swami says Manushyananda is primarily based on the body, or the Annamaya Kosha and the Manomaya Kosha. And Swami beautifully says, I'm not going into the complete details, he says Manushyananda, 100 times Manushyananda is Devananda, and then 100 times of that is Prajapati Ananda and Brihaspati Ananda, and Swami goes on like that. And finally he says, so many times, I think 10 to the power of 6 or 10 to the power of 4 or 5 different scriptures probably give you a different number. That many times of Manushyananda is Brahmananda. And then Swami says, each one of us is capable of and is meant to experience that Brahmananda. Which means our appetite is so large. Our appetite for bliss is that of Brahmananda, of experiencing that 10 to the power of 6 or 5 times of Manushyananda. But what are we doing? In Swami's beautiful words, Swami says, you give it samtosha. Right? Santosham. Swami says, santosha is samtosha. It's a little bit of satisfaction. Imagine a person with a huge appetite being given a few chips or starters like that. But that is what we are trying to do. We are trying to satisfy and appease a spiritual hunger with trivial worldly pursuits. And how will we not be discontent? If we really look at this whole journey of life through this spiritual hunger and this discontent that we all feel, we could probably break it up into 3 stages. Firstly, as Swami said, recognizing that this discontent is spiritual. That's the very first step. Recognizing that why I am not satisfied in life is because I have not progressed towards the goal. The second is seeking spiritual nourishment. Right? After having recognized and acknowledged that this is spiritual hunger, I need to seek spiritual nourishment. And the third is, as finally Swami says, the food is cooked, the food is served, but the food has to be eaten. Right? As we say even in English, the proof of the pudding is in the eating. Swami says, I could make the best dish. I can serve it on a silver or a gold plate, but you will have to eat it. So the third stage is the most important, of satisfying this hunger by eating that spiritual nourishment. As I often tend to say, nothing that I'm going to say in this talk or any talk I've spoken before is going to be new. And that's how it's meant to be. It is not supposed to be new. These three categories that I spoke of, recognizing that it is spiritual hunger, seeking the spiritual nourishment, and finally appeasing this hunger by consuming that spiritual nourishment, is nothing but Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana, or Jnatum, Drashtum, Praveshtum. This is what Vedanta gives as the three-step process for this journey. And when we say that it is a three-step process, a three-stage journey, we could get stuck in any of these three. We could have slips in any of this. So when we look at ourselves as spiritual aspirants, or at least when, as I said, we have recognized that along with worldly pursuits, we have to bring in a little bit of spirituality too into our life. I think it is important to look at all these three, and it's not necessarily three progressive steps. I think all through life we will be doing all these three simultaneously and progress towards that ultimate goal. So when we first speak about this idea of this being this spiritual discontent, I mean, if you really look at it, how many lifetimes we must have gone through this discontent and met people on the way who told us, you should make more money, you should become more successful, you should become more talented, you should acquire this, you should acquire that, you should build a bigger house, you should become a more influential person in society, you should get closer to the king, or you should become friendly to the minister. All of these are nothing but bad advice to satisfy this spiritual discontent, isn't it? Who knows how many lifetimes we have gone through this bad diagnosis and wrong medication before we have come to Swami, where he looks at us and says, this is spiritual hunger. There is a little episode that I heard from Dr. Alreja. Right? Once when he had come to the Radio Sai studio, he had narrated this episode. Swami one day called him and Swami said, there is one student who is in the hostel who is not keeping well. I want you to take care of him. And Swami was very concerned about the student. I think he had got malaria or typhoid or something like that. And this boy was from somewhere in North India, so he had problems with the food and everything. And Swami was very concerned about the student. So much so that Swami made him stay in the Mandir, and Swami was taking care of him. So Swami called Dr. Alreja and Swami said, take care of this boy, give him whatever medicines are required. And he diagnosed that he was going through something like this and gave him some injections and everything. So then he came back to Swami and he reported, Swami, I think he's fine now. I've given him this medicine and he's sleeping well. Apparently Swami asked the doctor, what if his fever comes back later in the night? Dr. Alreja said, no, Swami, I've given him the medicine. It should work for at least 8 hours. He'll sleep till then. And Swami said, what if the fever comes back? And he said, Swami, you tell me, what do you want me to do? Then Swami asked him, will you stay here and take care of him? And he said, yes, Swami, why not? I'll be happy to do that. And then Swami asked him, what do you want to keep awake the whole night? He said, don't worry about it, Swami. I'll bring a few books and I can keep awake and used to sitting by the patient's bed all through the night. So this student whom Swami was caring for was in Swami's Mandir, and this doctor was taking care of him. And exactly as Swami said, sometime at 1 in the night, he started getting high fever. So the doctor gave him the medicine which was required and then calmed him again, and he went back to sleep. So the next morning, Swami comes, as soon as he wakes up and he's ready, Swami comes to the room, and Swami asks the doctor, how's the boy? And he says, Swami, he's fine. And then Swami asked him, did the fever come at 1 o'clock? And he said, yes, Swami, just as you said, and I took care of it. Swami said, very good. So then after some time, this boy wakes up, and he wakes up with a very bad stomach pain. So he is catching his stomach and he's rolling in pain. So this doctor is wondering what happened, which medicine I gave has resulted in this side effect, or is there something else? Is there some other medicine that I have to give him? So then, within a few minutes, there were a few other doctors. They were consulting within each other, and they're trying to find out what medicine needs to be given. And this boy was holding his stomach, and something like cramps he was having. Then Swami came there, and Swami stood in the room when these doctors were discussing what to give, what must be wrong with this boy. And Swami very calmly was standing there in the corner and listening to the whole discussion. And apparently at the end of it, Swami asked Dr. Alrija, Doctor, can I give a diagnosis? Swami asked him. Doctor, can I tell? Can I give a suggestion? And they all turned to Swami and said, yes, Swami, whatever you say. And Swami said, I will do something. And Swami called another student and told him something. And this boy came back after a few minutes with a bowl of double boiled rice with rasam. Right? So Swami had instructed him. He ran to the South Indian canteen and he brought this bowl of nicely cooked rice with rasam. And Swami gave it to that boy who was having stomach problem and made him eat it. And this boy ate the whole thing, and Swami looked at him and asked, how do you feel now? He said, yes, Swami, no stomach pain. And Swami looked at Dr. Alreja and asked him, Doctor, was my diagnosis correct? And then the doctor said, yes, Swami, you were right. The boy was hungry. The doctors were looking at all the other problems that could have gone wrong and what was the side effect. But they forgot the simple thing that the boy hadn't eaten well for the past few days, and he was actually hungry, and the stomach pain was nothing more than that. So if you really look at it, how many lifetimes we have gone through well-meaning doctors, right? Not everybody comes and gives us bad advice in their idea. In their view, in their intention, it is good idea. It is good advice, right? We find a lot of people who come and give us good advice. Oh, you should do well in life. Oh, you should, get a good job. They really mean well for us, but unfortunately, they're bad doctors. Right? Finally, we have come to a point where we have come and the right diagnosis has happened. I think one thing we need to be really careful about is, who are we going to go for a second opinion to? Right? We have found the best doctor, the best diagnosis has been given to us. There is no better doctor to give us a second opinion, but at least we should be careful whom we are discussing this with. There is this beautiful story which is often said when they explain Vedanta. I don't know whether it is in any Upanishad, but you will find this in a lot of spiritual literature and discourses, where there is this spiritual aspirant who wants to obtain a mantra from a guru which will give him supreme peace. So he goes in search of a guru, and finally he hears about a master who is very accomplished. So he goes to this master and he says, Guru, I've come from a very long way, and I want to know that secret mantra through which I can attain the supreme bliss. So the master says, what you're asking for is very special. So you should do a lot of sadhana for that. Are you prepared for this? You should have a lot of patience and you should do a lot of sadhana. So the disciple says, I'm ready for anything. So the guru says, okay, you serve in my ashram for 1 year. we take part in all the yajna which happens and all of that, and we will see after that. So this disciple serves very diligently. A year goes by, and then he comes back to the master and says, Master, it's been a long while. When will I get my mantra? And the guru says, oh yeah, I forgot about that. Okay, I will give it to you today. And he calls this disciple and whispers in his ear the Pranava mantra. He says, Om. This is the most profound, secret mantra that can take you to the ultimate goal. So the disciple is delighted. Finally, he has got the mantra. But then when he goes around, he finds that everybody is chanting Om. The students, before they start a class, are chanting Om. The beggar calls out to the lady in the house and says, Om Bhavati Bhikshan Dehi. He sees a farmer going to sleep, chanting Om and going to sleep. He sees people in those days, they used to introduce themselves with Om. Om, my name is this. So then he says, the Guru told me that this is a profound mantra, it's a secret mantra, and I find that everybody is using it. The Guru has cheated me. Then he goes back to the Guru and he says, Guru, what is this? Everybody is chanting Om. How can you say that this is the greatest mantra, this is that secret mantra? So the Guru tells him, okay, since you're not satisfied with this, I'll give you another mantra. But before that, you should complete another test. So he says, okay, what is it? So the Guru goes inside and he brings a white rock, right? A very crude white rock. And he gives it to him. And he says, I want you to go to the market and try to sell this rock. So he says, okay, that is fairly simple. And he's about to leave. And then the Guru says, wait, don't sell the rock. Just try to sell the rock and try to find the value of this rock. So he says, this is very weird, but nevertheless, let's see. And he goes away. The first thing he does is he go to a commodities trader, probably someone who's selling vegetables and lentils and rice. And he says, I would like to sell this rock. What will you give me in return for this rock? So the man looks at it and he says, this is very similar to the rock that I use to weigh vegetables, right? It may be about 1 kilo. So I can give you the price of a rock which is 1 kilo. Right? It's looking fancy. I can use it for this. If you want, I can pay you that. So he says, okay, I will come back to you. And he goes away. And he goes to another place. And another man says, okay, I can buy the rock because I can sharpen my knife with this rock. And he offers something. And then he goes to another place and the lady says, it's a fancy rock that I can display it on my table or something, and I can pay you this much. So he goes to these different people and each one gives a value for this rock. And finally he goes to a jeweler and he gives this rock, and the jeweler looks at this rock and he says, where did you get this from? And he says, my Guru gave it to me and he asked me to find out the value of this rock. And the jeweler says that my entire shop with all the gold in it and all the precious gems is not as valuable as this rock. I can't buy this rock from you. I can't give you the money for this. Perhaps you will have to find a great king who will have the wealth to afford this rock. Somebody must have given this to your master, or he must have received it as a boon for some tapas that he must have done. This is a very, very precious rock. I cannot afford to buy this from you. So then he goes back to this Guru with this entire experience that he's had and says, Guru, this is what happened. Then the Guru tells him, the value of what you have in your hand can be ascertained based on what, the level of thinking of the person you interact with. The Guru might have given you something very, very precious, But if we go around discussing it with the people with petty minds, we will value it as being petty. The greatest gift that Swami has given, if we discuss it and if we are trying to find its value and worth and its validity by discussing it with people who are still considering that spiritual hunger to be worldly hunger, we will not be in a frame of mind to find the right value for this. And we run the risk of, after having found something so precious, we say, okay, it's after all rock, which is like any other. So when we talk of that first step, that step of Shravanam, or that first step of the right diagnosis, I think it's very important to maintain satsanga. And that is why, if you find in the Indian tradition, almost every saint, right? We know only the saints popular because of their music. There must have been so many great saints. I remember apparently there was one elderly devotee who was sitting in Swami's presence in the interview room, and he mentioned, Swami, what great people like Meera and all were. She must have been a great saint and great individual. And Swami remarked something, yeah, she's okay, right? Swami was saying, she's okay. Yeah, she's great, but she's okay. And this devotee was stunned by that. In Swami's measurement, if somebody as great as Mirabai is just okay, what about us? And he literally got up and he fell sashtang in front of Swami. He said, Swami, what is this? Do we all have hope? Then Swami said, see, she has written songs and the songs became famous, so she became famous. Yes, she has a lot of devotion, and yes, she won the love of Krishna. But there are so many, many, many more great saints in this land who you probably will never know of, because they have silently done their sadhana, reached their goal, and attained the ultimate. But if we look at the songs written by some of these very popular saints, be it Tukaram, Kabir, Namdev, or Tyagaraja, Mirabai, you will find that all of them make this prayer: give me the company of those who know the truth. Give me the company of saints. Where Tukaram beautifully writes in one of his abhangs, give me the company of those who know you. Right? If I want to know you, I should have the company of those who know you. That is why this first step is so very important, right? And we do this in any profession. I come from the city of Chennai, which is known for Carnatic music, classical Carnatic music. And you will find that anybody who starts becoming serious about Carnatic music will eventually move to one particular place in the city, right? Mylapore, because they know that all musicians are there. Or even in India, if you start learning some instrument like the sitar or sarod, you will find that many of them will tend to relocate to Kolkata. Or if you are trying to become an actor, or you want to become something in the cinema field, you will tend to move towards Bombay. And that is why probably we have this cultural, civilizational obsession with Himalayas, right? Because we think if you want to become spiritual, you have to go to Himalayas. But the inner essence of that quest is this, inner essence of that craving is this, that if I want to progress in the spiritual journey, I need the company of people who think in the same way. If I am taking Swami's advice, I must discuss it only with those who will value it in the same way. Right? This might sometimes be spoken of as not a right approach in the worldly sense, right? They would use words like inbreeding, or you have a closed group and you don't explore outside it. No, for the spiritual journey, this is very, very important. To keep the company of those who value Swami's words the same way you value it or you're supposed to value it. But we should also acknowledge that Swami is diagnosed it for us, and Swami is saying that this is the problem. And as Swami would beautifully say, if you go to a doctor, he will give you medicine, but he will also give you a change in diet or a change in lifestyle. Right? Ahara vihara, Swami will say. He will give you medicine and ahara and vihara. He'll say, take this medicine, avoid this food, or follow this lifestyle. Taking the medicine is easy. It's only one time. But changing lifestyle is very difficult. Right? Changing eating habits is very difficult. In the same way, it is very difficult to make a switch completely to the spiritual life. So it is going to take a little bit of time. So what we have to do is slowly infiltrate our own mind with the spiritual. Slowly feed ourselves with this thought that this discontent will not go. Yes, I am pursuing something worldly. Yes, I am going after money. Yes, I am going after progress in my career or whatever. But I am not going to find the happiness in this. That constant reminder to yourself is very, very important. There was this small episode I'd heard from one of our seniors. I think it must have been in one of the satsangs in the US, where he narrates that Swami had once called a devotee for an interview. This devotee happened to be a minister. And at that particular time when he had come to Parthi, he was going through something in his political career and it was all over the news. So the moment they saw him in Parthi, they knew that he had come to consult with Swami or whatever. So Swami immediately called him for an interview, spoke to him for some time. And then Swami comes out and Swami was talking to all the students and the lecturers there. So Swami walks up to one of the lecturers and Swami starts telling, this problem is going on, and he came to take Swami's advice. So this lecturer said, yes, Swami, we keep listening about it in the news. And very casually he said, it's natural, no, Swami, people come to you only when they're in trouble. The moment people are going through trouble, they come to you. And Swami pretended as though he took offense to it, apparently. He said, Atla chaptunave enti? He said, why do you say that? You think people come to me only when they are in trouble? And he said, Swami, what to do? That is the truth. No, only when we are in trouble, we turn to you. Swami would say, Sankatam vaste Venkataramana. Right? When we are in trouble, we all turn to God. He said, Swami, that it's pitiful, but that's the truth. And then Swami made a beautiful statement. Swami said, this world keeps telling you, Anandam istunnanu antundi. Swami said, this world will tell you, I will give you happiness, but it will not give you happiness. The role the avatar comes to play, Swami said, is to tell you that the Anandam that you're seeking is not out there, it is inside. This tweak in perspective, this diagnosis and the right medication is what he has come to give. So if that is the first step of having recognized this as the spiritual hunger, and more reminding ourselves through satsanga, through the right kind of listening, to the right kind of reading, through the right kind of company, that this is a spiritual quest. I am a spiritual person, because as Swami said, everybody goes through this, but only few recognize this as being spiritual. Only few recognize this as something for which the solution is in the spiritual quest. The second thing is, okay, now we have found out that this is a spiritual craving and this is a spiritual hunger. We will have to turn to spiritual nourishment for it. If I were to simply put it, the change in perspective now should be like, every time I find a problem, am I looking for spiritual solutions more than practical worldly solutions? As I said, we are not going to stop being practical in the worldly sense. I have a problem, I practically look at it, I keep addressing it, but also pause and think, could there be a spiritual problem that I'm not addressing? There's this very beautiful Chinnakatha which Swami often narrates, and I'm sure all of you know about it, where Swami says a man is very hungry and he looks around for a hotel, and finally he finds one place and he walks in and he calls the waiter and he says, get me one plate of idli sambar. And the waiter gets very, very upset and he said, sir, when you walk into the hotel, will you not look at the board? Why, what does the board say? He says, it says clearly there, military hotel. Right? It's a concept in India where a military hotel typically is meant for non-vegetarian food, and you will not find these popular Indian tiffins over there. It'll all be only with non-vegetarian items. So he says, sir, there's the board which says military hotel, and you come inside and ask for idli sambar. Swami says the same is the case with this world. This world has a board, right? A nameplate. What is that nameplate? What is that board? Anityam Asukham Loke. Swami says this world has that nameplate. Anityam Asukham Loke. This world will not serve Anitya Sukham. I'm sorry, Nitya Sukham. This world does not serve Nitya Sukham, because this world is Anityam and Asukham. And coming into this world, you say, I want Nitya Sukham. It is like asking for idli sambar in a military hotel. Right? So this recognition that my solution will not come from this world, my happiness will not come from this world, should slowly start growing in our mind. And for that, as a practice, whenever we are in a situation, look for spiritual solutions more than merely worldly solutions. I was listening to this talk of a very senior devotee who was in Swami's organization from the very beginning, and he also happens to be a medical doctor. For whatever reason, we're talking about a lot of doctors today. So he was also a very good medical doctor who had a very good practice. And Swami was beginning the organization in the early 60s. So he was instrumental in setting up the organization under Swami's guidance. So he would say that he had a lot of trouble balancing his professional commitment and Swami's organization work. He would say there are times when he had to secretly run away from his hospital, because if patients see him, they'll catch him and he can't go for Swami's work. So one time he comes to Swami and he says, Swami, I'm not able to balance. If you permit me, I will give up my medical profession. I can focus completely on Swami's work. And Swami said, no, that is not a good idea. See, I am setting up hospitals because it is good to, this kind of good medical treatment is necessary. And for, by good fortune, you're already a doctor. How can you give up that profession? It's a very noble profession. You should not give up. So then he said, okay, Swami, then I will take care of the medical profession. Can you find somebody else for the organization? And Swami said, no, you should do this also. So he said, Swami, then what do I do? How do I manage my time? If anybody comes and asks any of us this question, right, I have to manage my professional work and I have to do Swami's work in the organization, or this and that, we will always give practical solutions, right? Maybe on the weekends you can do Swami's organization work. Or if you're going through a period where your profession requires a lot of attention, you take care of that. Or, you have a personal commitment, like you just have a baby in the house, so you have to give a lot of attention. So we will give practical solutions, right? You have to do this and divide your time like this, manage your time like this. When this devotee asks Swami this question, he says, Swami, how do I manage the time? The answer that Swami gives is so profound. Swami says, you find that you don't have time because you think you are the doer. Swami said, if you reduce this idea of doership, you will find that you have time for everything. What a profound answer to a simple day-to-day problem that all of us face. Right? When I think that I am the doer, I have only 24 hours in my life. When I start believing that whatever has to be done will be done by Swami, and if I have to be there and it has to happen through me, it will happen through me. If Swami wants to have it done, and if I, as a body-mind complex, is not available for that work, Swami will find some other way to get it done. The more and more I grab doership, that is when I will find that my energy is limited, my time is limited. And he said, what a beautiful answer this is. And this is really the answer to the question. So for a mundane problem, can we look for the spiritual issue that is the root cause of that problem? I remember another student was narrating this episode. He was a typical introverted character, right? Who had this kind of social anxiety. If he had to go and meet somebody and speak to someone, he would really start, he would have physical manifestation of that stress. Heart palpitations will start and he'll start sweating and all of that. Right? So if he had to go, and this was when he was a student, and after he graduated, he'll have to go and look for a job and he'll have to get into society. So he was really worried about the whole thing. And many times it would happen, even if he had to go and consult a doctor or go to a government office or a bank, he would find that suddenly his heart rate would go up, and he's likely to make more mistakes because he's under stress. So he told this to Swami. He said, Swami, I'm having this problem. What do I do? Again, anybody else would have given a simple solution of do this practice, or stand before a mirror and practice, or slowly improve your social circle, or whatever it is. I don't know what is the practical solution for that. But Swami told him, you are having these issues because your body consciousness is more. Right? Because you are steeped in body consciousness, you go into a crowd and you say that I am in the midst of so many people. When you start reducing your body consciousness, when you reduce your dehabhimana and increase your atmabhimana, you will find that you're never in the midst of strangers. Right? A simple problem which a lot of us must have gone through, especially in our teenage years. But truly, this is the problem, right? The root of that problem of social anxiety is, I think I am this body alone. And I think somebody else is separate from me. So as we go through life, even as we are finding practical solutions to our problems, can we also go to the spiritual root of that issue? That is the spiritual nourishment. This discontent that we are feeling, this comfort we are feeling, or this whatever problem that we are going through, can we also add a little bit of spiritual nourishment to that diet? Seek spiritual answers to the problem that we are going through. And another important aspect about this spiritual approach to life itself is where you start looking at you as the center of any situation or problem. If something is not going right or something is troubling you, apart from looking at the situation and trying to correct it, what is it inside me which needs to be corrected or changed? right? You're going through something unpleasant in your workplace. Yes, we have to look at it and say that, okay, what do I need to do? Whom do I have to go and speak to? How can I sort this out? But also we'll have to stop and think, something unpleasant is happening outside and I am disturbed. So there is something wrong with me. I am still being disturbed by something that is happening outside me. That is an indication that I have not yet grown. Something unpleasant or unwelcome has happened outside and I am disturbed. It means I am still attached to a positive outcome. We all do a lot of things. I do it all the time, saying that, Swami, I'm offering this to you. Swami, I'm doing this only for you. But after the task is completed, if somebody comes and criticizes me, rightly or wrongly, if I get disturbed, I should stop and ask, I said that I did this for Swami. But why am I being disturbed when someone else is coming and saying that it was not right or it was not nice? Which means inwardly, somewhere, that hope that people will appreciate what I've done is there. So I have to work on that. I have to work on being honest when I say, Swami, I'm doing this only for you. That, Swami, you are the only person I'm trying to please through this activity. Can we work on ourselves and say that, am I absolutely being genuine when I say this? So that is why Swami says, one of the most beautiful statements which Swami would often reiterate in his discourses. The proper study of mankind is man. Right? The meaning of this statement, which sometimes gets lost because of the archaic English, actually. Right? The proper study of mankind is man is a very old style English. I think it's originally a quote from Alexander Pope or somebody like that. The meaning of this statement is, the only thing worthwhile to study is yourself. The proper study of mankind, what is to be studied is man himself. There is this beautiful story from the Upanishads, again, a very popular story. We have heard it even from Swami in his discourses, where there is a Gurukula, and in those days, the disciples would stay in the Gurukula and undergo training under the Guru. And invariably, there will be this period of monsoon, right? The 4 months of monsoon is the time when usually they don't go around much. So what we have as summer vacation must have been during that Chatur Masa or something like that. So it was that time when the disciples come to the Guru and say that, Guru, we would like to go home for some time. And we'll come back at the end of this period. So the Guru says, all right, all of you can go. But just when they start back to their homes, there is a torrential rainfall. And like most other Gurukulas, this Gurukula is also placed on the banks of a river. And because of the torrential rain, the river is in spate. So the Guru says, how will all of you go? Because you'll have to cross the river and go, and the river is very violent today. So one of the seniors in the group comes forward and says, Guru, I will take responsibility. I will ensure that all of us reach across. I know a place in the river where we can wade through, and I will ensure that all of us reach. So the Guru says, all right, you take the responsibility, and gives him all the instructions. And 10 of these disciples venture to cross the river and go to their hometowns. So they reach the shore of the river, and this senior disciple, he looks at all of them and he says, okay, this is what we're going to do. We'll hold each other's hand and make a human chain, and we will wade through the water and go. And he says, before we go, we will take a head count. We will find out how many of us are there. The Guru has already told him, 10 of you are going, go safely. So he says, 10 of us are there. After we cross the river, we will ensure that all of us are there. So they form this human chain and slowly cross and wade through this river. But right when they're in the midstream, there's a huge wave that comes and it breaks this human chain. But eventually everybody gather themselves and they reach the other shore. So this senior student, he says, okay, now let's see if everybody is there. So he makes all the others stand and he starts counting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And he's aghast. There are only 9 of them. And he says, oh God, we have missed one of our friends. One of our brothers is missing. So then he makes them, he counts from this side to that side, from that side to this side. He does everything and he's finding only 9 there. And they all start wailing, oh God, one of us is lost and one of us has been lost in the stream. A stranger who's walking by looks at the scene and he comes to them and sees all of them crying. He says, what happened? Is there any problem? Can I do anything to help you? And then he says, 10 of us started from our Gurukula and we were crossing the river and there was a huge current. Now one of our comrades is missing. So this stranger is a wise man and he says, okay, all of you stand and I will count. So this senior student says, no, we have already counted so many times and there's one boy is missing. He says, okay, no harm in counting again. So he makes all of them stand and the senior most student is the last one standing in the line. And he says, okay, now each one of you call out a number. And they say 1, 2, 3, 4. And finally it comes to the senior most student in the end and he says 10. Oh, we are 10 in number. And then the stranger says, you were the 10th man that you were looking for. Right? It's a simple mistake that he was doing, that he was counting everybody, but he was not counting himself. If we were to just analyze the story, that student had some skill, right? He had the confidence that he can be the leader of the group. He had a plan, which was not a bad one. He said, we'll form a human chain and we'll cross and we'll count from this side and then we'll count again that side. The plan was in place. And he had the skill, he could count, right? It's one of the basic skills. So he had a plan, he had the confidence, and he had the skill. But the mistake was, all of this was turned outward. He used his skill to study what was around him, but he was not including him in that study. When his intelligence and learning missed him out, there was confusion. That is why Swami says, whatever you learn, try to understand yourself first. Which means turn that intelligence and turn that quest and turn that whatever skills that you acquired inward to understand and study yourself. So if we are to find a spiritual solution for our spiritual problems, we have to look for spiritual solutions, and that can be done only when we look within us, isn't it? Sorry. A beautiful story that I often go back to. There is this Sufi master who is always absorbed in himself, and he's chanting mantras and doing namasparana and sitting by himself. So one day he's sitting in his home, and somebody in the village comes running to him, and in panic they come and say, Master, do you hear the news? Yes, what happened? Your son fell in the river and he drowned. The Sufi master doesn't react, and he sort of looks self-absorbed. No reaction at all, and he's just sitting there for a few seconds, and then he smiles. The man who came running with the news thought that this guy is totally lost, I think. I'm telling him his son is drowned and he's smiling. And just then another person comes running and he says, Master, you don't have to worry, your son has been rescued. And the master gives the same response. He's sitting there, doesn't panic, doesn't get up. He just pauses for a few seconds and then he smiles. The two of these people are perplexed by this reaction of the master, and they say, what is this? Right? We gave you two pieces of news which are totally opposite, but your reaction was the same. And then the master explains, when you came running to me and said, my son has drowned, I looked within myself to see if there was any panic or sadness. He said, there was no sadness. I was happy. And then when the second person came running and said, Master, your son has been rescued, I looked within to see if there was any excitement and exaltation. There was no excitement within, so I was happy. Every situation around becomes a means to study yourself, to test yourself, to test your own progress. 10 years ago, a certain situation happened in my life and I reacted in a certain way. Am I reacting to it differently? Handle the situation by all means. Do what needs to be done, right? Because that's important. But also turn within and see, am I thinking differently? Am I acting differently? Am I responding differently? Because in the spiritual quest, you become the main subject of your study. So it is not enough if we have understood that this is a spiritual discontent, but we must seek spiritual nourishment. And coming to the third step, as I said, it's 3 stages. The third one is, finally, the hunger must be satisfied. The goal of this entire process is to find that satisfaction in the end of it. We all have this prayer at the end of every session that we do. Earlier, it used to be Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Now we say Samasta Loka Sukhino Bhavantu. What is this Sukha that we are aspiring for? And we are wishing that for everyone. A beautiful example that I heard from a senior devotee was that, imagine that you are running to office and you want to catch a bus or a flight, and you're running late. And as you're rushing to that bus stand, you're praying to Swami, Swami, I'm late today. If I miss this bus for the next half an hour, I'll not find another bus. Please ensure that the bus is there and I can catch the bus. Right? And you're praying fervently and you're running towards the bus stand. And as you reach the bus stand, you find that the bus is there. And you rush into it and you sit on the seat. And then what do? Thank you, Swami. That is Sukha. Now imagine you run to the bus stand and then you find that the bus has left and you're disappointed and you have to wait, or you have to pay something more and you have to take another conveyance. And finally you get there. But the next morning you read in the newspaper that that bus met with an accident. What do you say? Thank you, Swami. Again, it's Sukha. Sometimes Sukha is reached by prayers being answered. Sometimes Sukha is reached with prayers not being answered. And what we pray for is that, Swami, let everybody find that Sukha. I don't know how they will find it. I don't know they will find Sukha if they get what they want or if they are denied what they want. But I only pray for Sukha for everyone. Samasta Loka Sukhino Bhavantu. Right? It is that satisfaction that we find at the end of it that we are seeking. There is this beautiful discourse that I was hearing, and Swami was making this wonderful point, right? Very beautiful. And the way he was saying, he said, see, I'm giving a discourse now. And I'm standing here for the past 1 hour. You are all sitting in front of me. Swami would say this playfully, not in this discourse. Swami would say that during the discourse, you should see my students, Swami will say. Right? Because they will be sitting there and they will be looking at Swami without even turning their head or blinking an eye. Right? So they'll be like looking at Swami, drinking every moment of that scene in front of them. But as typically Swami would do, Kani, nothing gets into the head. Because literally that's what it was, because we were not spiritually mature to understand what Swami was conveying. We were not having that spiritual craving to lap up whatever Swami was serving. But we were delighted to see Swami. Right? We used to look forward to a discourse because it meant for half an hour or 1 hour or 45 minutes, we could sit in front of Swami and just look at him. So Swami was saying in that discourse that here I am standing for the past 1 hour and talking to all of you, and you all are seeing me. But imagine after this discourse is over and after this program is over, you go back to your room and you sit in meditation. And in your meditation, you have a vision of Swami. You will come jumping and say, hey, I saw Swami. And Swami is saying, you are seeing Swami for 1 hour. And then Swami made a very profound point. Swami said, spiritual attainment is not in that excitement of a vision. Right? What is the purpose of all of this that we are doing? This goal of this spiritual quest is not to have an experience, is to not to have a vision, is not to have a glimpse. Swami said that idea that Swami is right here should become sahaja. It should become a common thought in your mind. I was once talking to a senior of mine and he narrated this beautiful experience, but the experience was not in the experience itself, or the experience was not in what happened to him, but what happened within him. He was going through this phase when he was a student, when he was desperately trying to catch Swami's attention. Because Swami had never spoken to him and he was trying his best to do whatever it takes to have Swami come and speak to him. So he would go and speak to all these elders and teachers and he would keep asking Swami, what should I do that Swami will come and talk to me? So they gave him, each one gives their own advice. Oh, you should maintain silence, or you should do sadhana, you do all the things in the hostel and all of this. So this boy, he said, I'm willing to try anything. So he went through a period of a few months where he said he was so full of Swami that every moment he was thinking of Swami. Every moment he stopped talking to his classmates, he stopped unnecessary chatter. Whenever he would get time, he would go away to some place in search of solitude and sit and just think of Swami. Write letters to Swami, likita nama japam, whatever it took. But he said it came to a point where for about few months, he was saturated in thoughts of Swami. And it happened that one night when he was in the hostel, he got up to use the washroom. And the setup in our hostel is such that we have all the rooms in one corridor, and the washrooms are towards the end of the corridor. So if you want to use the washroom, you have to come out of your room and walk across that corridor, go to the washroom complex, and then come back. So this boy goes to the washroom complex and he comes back. It's completely dark. Right? Everyone is asleep, and this boy walks across that corridor, and as he reaches the room, he finds Swami standing there and waiting for him in flesh and blood. Right? He says Swami is standing there in the end of the corridor waiting for him, and he comes there and he says, I stood there and I spoke with Swami for a few minutes, and then Swami said, okay, now you go and sleep. Right? He had that experience of visualizing or having the vision of Swami there. And he said it was not a vision. I could see him. He was there in flesh and blood. And when he narrated this episode, he said, the thing was, yes, it was a very great experience. Swami manifested in front of me. But what was more fascinating was, he said, I was not even surprised. He said, because I was so saturated with Swami, when I saw Swami, I said, You had to be there because I am so full of you. He said what fascinated him was that he was not excited by an experience. He thought that is natural. The Lord who is everywhere, if you call, he will come. So this goal of this thing is not to have an experience in the end of it and say that, wow, I had an experience. It is to say that now I see what I have not seen all this while. Now I know what was always known, but I was not looking at it. I was not paying attention to it. It is not an experience that comes from outside, but it is being awake to something which was always around, but I missed it all this while. There is this beautiful episode that I heard from another senior of mine. He was saying that some of them, a few students, were in Swami's interview room. And Swami was talking to all of them, and suddenly Swami asked a question. What is the goal of the spiritual journey? That's something to that effect. What is the goal of the spiritual journey? What is the end of spiritual life? I think that is the exact question. What is the end of spiritual life? So each one was trying to gather some courage and give some answers to Swami, and Swami was not very pleased with any of the answers and he kept dismissing them. Then one of the boys said, Swami, the river merging in the ocean is the end of the spiritual life. And Swami liked that imagery. River merging in the ocean. Like a child, Swami said, river merging in the ocean. And he kept telling that, river merging in the ocean. River merging in the ocean. So the boy thought that maybe that was the right answer and Swami was happy with the answer. But Swami kept on telling that, very nice, river merging in the ocean. But then Swami clarified. Swami said, the river living as the ocean is the beginning of the spiritual life. The river living as the ocean is the beginning of the spiritual life. It completely flips our idea of what is the goal of spiritual life. What is the purpose of life? Right? Swami says, you living as the divine is the beginning of spiritual life. Which means in this final stage, what we were talking of as eating that nourishment, consuming that spiritual food that Swami is serving, is we living it? Or making this conscious effort to live it? And how do we do that? Right? I mean, all of this is not simple words out there. These are all things that Swami has told us, right? He might not have structured it in the structure that I'm giving it to you. But this is precisely Swami's advice to all of us. Talking about the river and the water and all of that, there's a beautiful quote. I will just read out one quote from Swami's discourse. This is from the discourse that Swami delivered on July 26, 1994, where Swami says, when a stone is cast in a well, a series of ripples start from the point where the stone fell. From there, the ripples go to the edge of the well and cover the entire well. In the same manner, when the stone of thought is cast on the lake of the mind, the ripples started by it fill all the senses and the limbs in the body. It's a very simple quote, but this is precisely the mechanism with which our body, mind, and senses complex work. We have what you call a chitta, a mind. And every event that happens in front of us creates a certain ripple in this mind. What we refer to in Vedanta as a vritti, a chitta vritti. And this vritti spreads to the senses and the body. And so we speak and act. So every experience that we have through our wakeful life creates a certain vritti and results in a certain action. What Swami is trying to make us do is change the vritti for a certain experience. When I have a problem that caused a certain vritti in my mind, today can that same problem create a different vritti? Right? A normal person panics when something goes wrong in life. As a devotee, when something goes wrong, can we say that this is an opportunity for Swami to step in? Or this is a test which is going to take me closer to Swami. And Swami, I'm happy about that. I'm excited about that. Which means we have changed our vritti as a response to a certain stimuli from outside. We are looking at different individuals and we say that, okay, we have many lifetimes have gone like this. This is a tall person, this is a short person, no, this is a person from this ethnicity, and this is a person from this religion. Each one of these inputs gives a certain vritti, right? That vritti says, okay, he's this kind of a person. If I see a person from a certain region in the world, oh, this must be his or her trait. Because we have wired ourselves like that. But today, Swami is offering us an alternate vritti. When you look at a person, you say that body is only an upadhi, right? The body is only a front, but the same Swami is there within. Can we change our mental response to the same stimuli that we have had so far? The more and more we do that, we are living that spiritual life. We are slowly replacing each one of these vrittis. The way I look at criticism should be different. The way I look at fame should be different. The way I look at money should be different. Right? All this while looking at money and wealth gave me a certain response. Right? It caused a certain vritti. That ripple went through my mind and my body and the senses. It created a certain kind of craving in me. But today, can I look at those same objects and think differently based on the vrittis that Swami has put inside me? When I slowly start doing this little by little by little, as Swami said, the river beginning to live as the ocean is the start of the spiritual life. The river being non-existent to say that now I am in the ocean is perhaps the end of this spiritual life. And why do we really have to do this? Why do we have to change the way we have been living for many, many lifetimes? What is the necessity? Maybe you're a spiritual aspirant. This is the process for that. Or if you and I claim to be devotees of Swami, this is what we owe to him, isn't it? This is what Swami expects of us. And Swami told one devotee, what is devotion? Right? Is doing bhajans devotion? Is crying devotion? Is craving for Swami devotion? Swami said, devotion is when the devotee thinks like Swami. Right? A true devotee should start thinking like Swami. What would Swami do in this situation? What would be the solution that Swami would give? I'm having a fight with a colleague. I'm having a fight on the road, let's say. If I were to go and tell this to Swami, what will Swami's response be? Will not Swami look at me and ask, Bangaru, you should have been more calm. I expect that of you. Shouldn't you be more mature? So that is why this whole process, I become the center of whatever I'm trying to do. And am I changing myself in this little by little by little? There is this beautiful padyam that Swami would sing. You say, okay, you've come to me, you claim to be devotees. You are a devotee. I am the Lord before you, the Bhakta and the Bhagwan. Swami says, but is the goal to just remain like this, that you as a devotee and me as God? Swami tells in a padyam, he says, Nenu nenuga unnanta neevu gavu. He says, if you keep thinking that this is Bhagwan, this is God, then I will remain me, right? Nenu nenuga unnanta neevu gavu. I will remain me and I will not become you. Neevu neevuga unnanta nenuganu. If you keep thinking that I am this limited person, I am this limited individual, I am this vyakti, Swami says, you will never become me. My understanding of who Swami is should change. My understanding of who I am has to change. That's why Swami says, Nenu nenuga unnanta neevu gavu, neevu neevuga unnanta nenuganu. Neeku nakunna indulo nelavu ledu. There is no distinction between you and me. Unnadokkate hridayambu ennaganu. There is only one heart and there is no distinction between you and me. So this goal of this devotional journey is also to ensure that he does not remain himself and I do not remain myself. In this journey, my understanding of who I am has to improve. My understanding of who he is has to improve. And it has to come to a point where there is no distinction. And the start of this journey, as Swami says, is the river beginning to live as the ocean. Can I think as compassionately as Swami? Can I think as magnanimously as Swami? Can I think as forgivingly as Swami? As accommodating and as universal as Swami? Right? As I said, after any number of lifetimes, finally we have been diagnosed with the right problem. And we have been told, this is what is troubling you. And it is not going to be easy to make the switch right away. We can't immediately stop all our worldly pursuits. But even as we are pursuing the world, let us remind ourselves that no, the happiness that I'm seeking is not going to come from this. Out of habit, I'm being drawn to this exercise. Out of habit, I'm being drawn to this pursuit. Or at least make yourself attentive to whether this is really making me happy. That you're going through an experience, you've achieved something, you've had an ambition for many, many years and you've achieved it. If you are aware, you will feel that, is that all? Okay, I felt happy, but is that all? Which means it was nothing but a fancy that I was chasing. Infiltrate your worldly pursuit with that spiritual thought. Right? Infect it, spiritually infect yourself. It's just a matter of time. And as I said, Satsanga is so important. What we listen to, whom we discuss this with, whom we discuss our malady with, should be a person who understands this. And keep that company which keeps reminding you what the real problem is, but can't stop there. Slowly seek spiritual answers for worldly questions. Seek spiritual solutions for worldly problems. And lastly, start living that life. Right? And as I said, these are not like you have to finish this and then come to second and then go to third. And nothing that I said can definitely be told it is new, because this really is the essential message of Vedanta. And what I have done today is using all of you as a means for me to remind myself of whatever I said. Right? Because this is so very important for each one of us, because we can't afford to miss this chance that we've got. Right? We go into panic mode for all kinds of things. This should make us panic. Swami, I should not miss this opportunity. Swami, you have come into my life. You have given me so much. If not now, when will I achieve this? Right? As Swami said, that craving to go back home, I think even that way, unfortunately, we have to ask only Swami. Swami, give us that restlessness. Give us that desperation to get back home. Right? Not as an experience, not as, Swami, I don't want you to come and go away in a flash. I want you to come in such a way that I don't see anything but you. Wherever I look, I should find only you. Right? With that prayer, and when we start this new year, just a reminder once again for all of us that this is what we need to do. This is the only worthwhile thing to do with our life. I offer this talk at Bhagwan's lotus feet. I thank you all for your very, very patient listening. Jai Sai Ram.
It's 100 years since this land was blessed with your coming. For 100 years, holding our hand, you have taught us to walk the road to redemption. 100 years of correcting misconceptions, redefining dharma and realigning purpose. Swami, none of us were here today. Perhaps there to welcome you and sing in ecstasy on that most sacred day 100 years ago. But today, we can't sing enough to express our joy. We can't sing enough to express our joy.
चाहते हैं तुमसे ये सफर साई के रास्ते, राह भी है तुमसे जिंदगी साई के वास्ते। ये सफर बने तेरी दास्तां, साथ हो तेरा है वादा है। 100 बरस का गीत गाए, साई जन्म से जीवन गाए। 100 बरस की समा मुस्काए, साई राह पे चल के दिखाए। तुमसे ही दिल का सहारा, तुमसे ही हर दिन गुजारा, तुमसे ही है ये ज़मीं और आसमां। तुमसे ही जीवन की धारा, तुमसे ही सुख का किनारा, तुमसे ही होता है रोशन ये जहां। तेरे नूर से धूप मिले, तेरे प्यार में छाँव मिले, वो साई तुम्हीं से सुकून मिले। 100 बरस का ये गीत गाए, साई जन्म से जीवन गाए। 100 बरस की समा मुस्काए, साई राह पे चल के दिखाए। चाहते हैं तुमसे ये सफर सफर बने तेरी दास्तां, साथ हो तेरा है अरमान, वादा है ये 100 बरस का